Kate, thank you very much for joining me.
No worries, glad to be here.
How's things? What have you been up to during the lockdown?
Um, Being really, really bored, pretty much like everyone else that suddenly hasn't got a job to go to. I think trying to work out as much as I can, but yeah, it's I've suddenly gone from coaching and training sort of 7 days a week to very much not.
Well, so you're full time now, full time training, full time coaching. That's your full time career is MMA based stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it's probably last coming up to 4 years now, I think. Which is really cool, and I'm really grateful for it. But yeah, it's just some of it has a shelf life, and losing a chunk of that time, which is a bit frustrating.
How long of so 4 years? What were you doing before that? So let's go back when you started. What were you doing when you started MMA, and then what did that lead into work wise, and then subsequently now you're obviously full time.
Um, I think probably I was at UWE in Bristol, and I was training a bit there, and then when I came home again, I'd been managing a restaurant, or I was managing a restaurant in my hometown. Probably, I think it was from the year I had my first pro fight. So I did that for about 6 years, and then I went full time. Not at the same time as the Ultimate Fighter. So yeah,
Okay.
that wasn't something I thought. Well, you know what the early days of the sport were like.
Yeah.
It didn't really seem possible.
Yeah. Well, especially for women, like for women, it certainly wouldn't have seemed possible to be full time when you were struggling to even fight people who haven't even either fought already or you're training with.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, when I first started, I think women coaching was pretty much unheard of. So that in particular, I think the fact that I can do that, and that it's not a big deal nowadays at all. Yeah, that in particular to me is it's something I love coaching. It's something I really enjoy doing. So I'm glad that's a possibility.
Yeah, and I mean, people may not know, but you've been fighting a long time for, especially for a female. For a female, you what 2008 or nine or something was it your debut?
Yeah, 2009. So in fact, yeah, 11 years ago this month.
Yeah, that's a long time for a UK female fighter. That is a really long time. There was a couple of girls who Cherie, I think, was before you, maybe a couple, but certainly no one who I would say has got to the level that you are, or has been has as credible as you are from early on.
No, I think there are. I mean, obviously there are women coming through now that will go a very long way.
Yeah.
But yeah, from when I started, I think pretty much everyone's finished now. It's pretty much stubbornness on my part, I think. Yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy training. More than fighting, I think, and the coaching side of it. So I don't think whilst I might finish MMA eventually, I think Brazilian Jiu Jitsu will keep going for a long time.
Yeah. So what's your at the moment? What's your sort of training regime spread across? So if you're out of fight camp, what's your sort of training regime? What are you doing on a daily basis out of fight camp?
During lockdown or outside of it?
No, no, outside of lockdown. Right now, I guess it's just maybe some resistance bands, some sprawls in the back garden, and you're done.
I guess I do probably 2 or 3 sessions a day. Coach, I think I'm up to four days a week. And yeah, sort of have a half day Saturday and Sunday, and the rest of the time it's sort of starting with morning sessions and then finishing off in the evening.
Yeah, and then so if you get a fight organised, then do change things up, or do you just try and make more of the times that you're coaching a bit more specific to you and try and get people to feed into that style of training? Say in a class, are you trying to nick some training out of the class that you're teaching as well, or are you just trying to just keep them separate?
I mean, I'm kind of terrible, especially with the kids. I make up the classes on the spot. So if it's something I've been doing recently myself, then if I think it fits for them, then I'll carry it over. I do a lot of, ironically, considering that I would not call myself a wrestler in any way, shape or form, I do quite a lot of wrestling with them, just because they seem to enjoy it, and I think we have striking, we have a lot of jiu-jitsu at my gym, so I think that's the link that, especially in the UK, that the children really need. So
Yeah.
I try and give them that to the best of my ability.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a poor reflection, really, in that we've known for a long time how important wrestling now is, and it's very prominent in MMA gyms, but still there's very little wrestling focused towards children in the UK. I mean, obviously when I teach, because I am pretty known for my wrestling, I teach a lot of wrestling to the kids. But outside of that, you'll find so many kids do jiu-jitsu or they do boxing or Muay Thai, and wrestling's sort of an unknown quantity still for kids.
Yeah, I suppose it's probably started to filter down really slowly, just because of the level that you have to achieve for MMA nowadays. But it's like in the southwest, we probably, I mean, you've got Saeed in Bristol.
Yeah.
Once you've come further to southwest, I think that's there are no, as far as I can see, there are no dedicated wrestling coaches.
Yeah, so we in Bristol we had Saeed and Josh. Josh is my wrestling coach now. I started with Saeed years ago, but Saeed and Josh competitively wrestled. Their dad Amir was like really famous, and so they competitively wrestled. So I wrestled with them back when I was only doing judo. And so those two branched off and they started to really just focus on teaching wrestling. So in the Bristol, we've been lucky and we've had it for a long time. But as you go outside of Bristol, over the southwest, there is, I don't really know of anywhere, until you get into Wales, I don't know of anywhere that's focused primarily on wrestling.
I mean, we have, my Nuki gym has a good wrestling coach. But I think it's the only guy that I know of that specialises in it, until you hit Bristol. So it's pretty rare.
Yeah, it is a shame. Hopefully, though, it will start picking up. And I mean, I think if we can get anything on the curriculum, that would be the one to push for, I think, because you're not teaching people to break people's arms and choke them, and you're not teaching kids to punch each other. So wrestling might be one that we can start to get on the curriculum, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really branched out into schools yet, so, and it's probably going to be a while now until we can, but yeah, I suppose there are schools that seem to be more willing to take some of the combat sports nowadays, so it's probably worth a try at some point.
Definitely. So, you were in 2009, you don't have to give your age if you want to, if you don't want to, but you started, what was your drive to start fighting? Have you always been interested in fighting? Has it always been something, were you interested in watching fights when you were younger and stuff, or was it just something that you found and it just sort of hooked you?
I started karate at 15, like probably quite a lot of my generation, and it's sort of, I knew that it wasn't real. I knew that it wasn't something that you could do for a career, so I think when I first became aware of MMA, that was probably, I don't even know when I first worked out the sport existed. It was 2005 maybe. So I don't even know if I was interested in doing it. I just thought that, it looked really cool, it was real. And I think it just sort of snowballed from there. Like I was doing judo as well. Obviously, judo's a competitive combat sport, and that is definitely not fake in any way, shape, or form. So I think it was from that it sort of maybe led into grappling next, and MMA, when I found my first gym in, I think it was 2008.
Where were you training in 2008?
Concept gym in Newquay.
That was the first place, yeah, with Mark there. Was it Mark? Was Mark there then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mark Rowler. He's still
Yeah.
my coach.
Yeah.
But obviously my jiu-jitsu team, and the gym that I probably spend a bit more time at nowadays is in Flow Martial Arts in Plymouth,
Yeah.
which is absolutely massive. Which nowadays is massive and empty, but yeah, it's an amazing facility.
So what? So when you were growing up, school and stuff, were you sporting? Were you into sports? Did you play for, like, I don't know, the girls' football team or netball team or anything? Was it an interest of yours to be sporting and athletic?
No, I didn't. I didn't. I was terrible is not the right word. I didn't enjoy sport at school. I did gymnastics. I did swimming, but I swam competitively. But I've none of the team sports at school really seemed to do it for me. So I'm finding out now that team sports are super important, because like training on my own, working out on my own really sucks. Like I like my gym, and I like having my teammates around me. So yeah, that I'm very much into team sports now, even if MMA doesn't look like it's much from the outside.
So what about family and stuff? When you told them you wanted to fight, how were they? Like, was it something where people? Because for me, obviously I'm a guy who grew up doing a lot of judo. I played football at a high level, and I was always quite sporting. And then I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fight, and they were like, of course you are. Yeah, obviously. I was never allowed to box when I was younger, but I was like, everyone in the family was like, yeah. Yeah, no, you're definitely going to fight, yeah. So, was it sort of the same for you? How did the family... Because, I mean, obviously I've coached girls, and to a high level, like taking them from nothing all the way up. So I've coached them, but it's hard to really get an insight as to what goes through the process for when... Because when you must have told your family, yeah, I'm going to fight, they would have been like, well, girls don't fight, who's fighting, you know?
I can't even remember telling them that. Like my dad he drove me to karate, and they've always been supportive, but I can't even remember telling them about my first fight. They knew it was happening. I was living with an ex at the time, obviously, so they didn't really have much to do with it. Didn't see any of the run up or the aftermath. So it was literally me telling them. I mean, I don't know if they'd seen judo competitions. They knew I'd done them. So I remember my mom didn't like it. I don't know, she wouldn't have understood it either, especially back then. But so I had... Yeah, I think they were just relieved afterwards that I was okay. Nothing bad had happened. It was a short fight. And I barely understood it at the time, so I don't think they did. So the difference in 10 years is absolutely massive.
Yeah.
Because they both came out to Hawaii with me in December, which is possibly our last holiday for quite a while as well. So I'm glad that happened.
Yeah, it's amazing that now their daughter's fighting in Hawaii. They get to go over and see. That's an incredible thing to go back for anyone, like of your son or your daughter. If your son or your daughter gets to a level in MMA where you're going to places like Hawaii and stuff to watch them fight, you to look at them and be anything but proud would be ridiculous anyway, because it's a massive achievement. The level that you're at now is a massive achievement, irrespective of male, female. To fight for a world title on a show like Bellator, it's a huge achievement.
Yeah, I guess I find it, like, the build up to it was obviously kind of insane, and I was pushed and pushed and pushed to try and explain what it meant to me. But now that it's been and gone, it's kind of really easy just to downplay it and fade into one of those, just another part of my career, I guess.
Yeah.
So I don't. It seems something that happened a very long time ago right now.
Yeah, and I guess you got like, so I'm a one fight guy, so that's my last fight. What's happened happened. I'll build on it in the gym and I'll work on stuff, but on to the next one, whether that's winning a title or losing a fight that I should have won or whatever it may be. Once the fight's done, it's done. I use it to progress as an athlete. But other than that, it's done. Win or lose, I'm ready to think about the next fight then. So I guess what you're saying is the same sort of thing. You're just, you fought for something. It was an amazing achievement, but you're ready now. Let's go forward.
Yeah. My focus, and no, my focus definitely after that was just getting back in the gym, and it wasn't even so much working on causing my game from the fight itself. It was my jiu-jitsu coach. I'm a brown belt under him, and he has areas of my game that he wants me to fix, and therefore that is what needs to happen. It's taken me a very long time to get to the point where I actually listen to him, but if he says there are things that he wants fixed, then I'm trying bloody hard to fix them. So is my current focus anyway.
It's nice when you've got your jiu-jitsu coach who's like, we need to fix this, we need to work on this, and you're a bit like, but I like my top game. Do I need to work on that from bottom half?
Yeah, very much like that. He's obsessed with framing at the moment, and what else? Oh, building base underneath you when you're wrestling back up. So it's not even anything exciting.
Who's your jiu-jitsu coach?
Kenny Baker.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know. It's been quite a while since he was very active competitively. Or maybe up until 2013, 14.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd probably be horrified that it's been 6 years or so, I think, since it's maybe a bit longer than that. But I think that's when he was most active as a brown belt about 10 years ago. Which is a long time now. Yeah,
I mean, like he's known he's a veteran. He's well known. He is anyone who's listening who is interested in the sport back from years ago and follow back. They'll know who he is. Definitely.
Yeah, he's still. I mean, on a good day, when he isn't feeling lazy or broken, he's still very, very impressive to watch in the gym. On a good day, no one can touch him.
Yeah.
So that's still pretty cool to see. But
what percentage? What percentage gi and no gi are you doing?
Yes, I do gi maybe twice a week.
Oh, fair play.
It's grudging. I hate it. I think I had a brief 6 months period where I felt like it was going okay, and then that has never come back since. I do it, and it's horrible most of the time.
Yeah, you're more committed than me. I think in the last 10 years I've probably got 20 gi sessions, maybe 25, and I would say 4 of them are at gradings, and I've only been to 4 gradings in the last 10 years probably, which is why I don't get my belts. Like Pedro says to me, he's like, you don't come. Like, how can I give you a belt? You don't come. I'm like, I can't argue with that, I guess. I guess I gotta be here. So yeah, you are doing better than me. When I had the Bristol Open not long ago, and I had the gi on probably twice a week for 3 weeks, and before and after that I can't even remember.
I watched you at was it Somerset Open?
Yeah, no gi.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was cool. My teammate was supposed to be in your category, and he pulled out because he had really bad flu that week. It was. I think there were quite a few of them. Yeah, maybe 3 or there were more than there was on the registration list anyway.
Well, I turned up on the day and I just said, what's the highest belt you've got grade in here? What's the highest belt level you've got and weight category? And they said we've got brown at this. I was like, can you put me in? And Simon was like, yeah, if you want. I was like, okay. So I stepped in there and then in the morning. So I
Yeah,
thought
no, that
I'm
was good to
here.
see because it's I think in the whole run up to that comp there were sort of one and two brown belts at your weight, so it was nice to see more of a day.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, isn't people don't. I feel people don't push themselves. They don't want to, And I hate doing grappling comps because I think some people it's their whole life. They train just to go to a sports center on the weekend, and so they're going to try and rip your arms and legs off. As where I'm going to go and thinking the whole time, oh please don't get injured. I really don't want to get injured in a leisure center doing BJJ. So
Yeah, I think Lee said that about jumping in. I think he jumped in on one of the Welsh ones because some guy's opponent hadn't turned up, and he said he doesn't want to compete an adult again. He said they take it so seriously.
yeah.
He's like, if you want to have my arm, have my arm. I don't care, just anything rather than getting injured.
Yeah, exactly. So you were at like 2008. You've started fighting. Things are going quite well for you. How long then was your? When were you Ultimate Fighter? Was it 2015?
16.
16.
So I think it was airing 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And Terry Hughes and I went out to Vegas for it at the end of 2015.
Because that's what I came and met you,
there.
didn't I? Yeah, I came and met you at the tryouts. That's right. So yeah, 15. Yeah.
Yeah, you invited us to was it base jump?
Yeah.
I won't say where because I have a feeling that it wasn't somewhere.
No. It wasn't necessarily legal, but I have the video and it went well.
I was going to her. It's now really the time to be caught, being at the top of somewhere we maybe shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Watching that happen.
Yeah, possibly. But the tryouts were good though for you. You're right. It went well during the tryouts.
I think I looked vaguely competent at the striking. The grappling, it took me a while to realise. I think it wasn't until I was at Jackson's a couple of years ago that I even realised it was one of their fighters, Josie Escobel, that I had a grappling match with. And Ash Williams posted a clip of one of his really early grappling comps where they started on the knees. And that reminded me that the tough tryouts, they didn't let us start standing because they didn't want people double-legging each other through the conference rooms or whatever they were, partitions. So I think I had a really crap grappling match on our knees when neither of us could get the other one down, and I tried putting butterfly guard out of desperation, and I'm not sure anything particularly interesting happened, which was really annoying.
Well, it's good enough for them to notice you, which is the main thing.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't think I'm not sure they were blown away by me in the interview, but I just about scraped through, and they were right. I was absolutely shockingly bad in the house. I hated it. I never properly opened up. They didn't get anything interesting from me at all. So I think they're right to be worried.
But I think what people don't realise is just how much of a TV show it is. So it may have been the same for you. When I went, nobody had flown out before and done the tryouts before. So I saw Sammy Berrick post that he'd sent a video to the tryouts. So I looked at when they were. I was like, probably next week. Went online, booked a flight to Boston, flew to Boston with my dad and went to the tryouts, walked in and just did them. And Dana White was like, "You've come from England?" I was like, "Yeah, I've come for this." He's like, "What the fuck?" So I went in and I did the bits, and then they said, "Right, you need to not go back to England. You need to stay. Can we put you in Vegas for a week? We'll give you $50 a day spending." I was like, "Yes, you can." So I went to Vegas and I stayed there. And then from there you have to do medicals. So I had like a week, 10 days of just medicals, having my eyes done, my brain scans, everything like that. Then from there, they sent me home. I was home for a couple of weeks. They flew me back out. And I was back out again for interviews and stuff. Then they flew me home. They flew me back out again. Then I'm out into... They put me in Palace Station Casino. And so you're in there. You can't leave your room. You're just locked in. You have to do food orders up to your room. They bring you any food that you want. You have to cut weight and stuff. You have to do everything there in your room. And I was just waiting just to come, someone to come and collect me. Say, okay, we need to go and do interviews. You go and do an interview. Then you get walked back to your room. You need to go and do this. You go and do that. You go back to your room. You're like, you are in a TV show. There's no two ways about it. Then when it goes to the fight, you go to your fight. You're starting to warm up. People are there. Oh, can we have a quick interview before you fight? Can you just talk about this before you fight? You go fight. Can we have a quick word about this? And you're like, when you're there, you're like, this is a fucking TV show. This is not, and that's exactly what it is. It is just a pure TV show, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky, I suppose, in that I was in Vegas with Kerry Hughes. We sorted our own accommodation, so it wasn't in Palace Station, and we didn't move there either. So we basically planned on staying in Vegas for a week.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to rebook our flight home or anything like a lot of them were doing or having. So we had all the medicals and stuff done at that point. And then it was going home, and it was waiting for a callback that might never come. So you had to arrange. That was the weirdest thing. You basically had to arrange to potentially being away for 6 weeks without knowing if it was going to happen. And I think I only got a few days' notice to pack and then get out there. And then it was the whole Palace Station thing being locked in your room. They let us keep our phones right up until. I think they took them away just after the weigh-in. I would have been screwed without that because being locked in a room with no contact, and the weight cut. The weight cut was the first time I'd made score weight, and it was absolutely horrendous. And I, in hindsight, should have taken someone out with me to help. But that was the point where you basically had to phone to have someone. You had to babysit any time you left the room. So if you wanted to go to the sauna to cut weight, you had to be minded the whole time. It just makes me very, very, very grateful for every single little bit of freedom I have.
It is. It's it's really intense because you just die, and there's only so much American TV you can watch when you're cooped up, ready to fight. Like I was just there. I was like, let's just fight. Let's just go get the fight started. Let's just do something. But I mean, it was like 5 days or something, just cooped up in that room, just doing interviews before we even went to the gym. It was it was intense.
Yeah, I think I flew out. It was the first time that not that I met Lanchana, but we were probably in contact. Lanch and I flew out together. I think it was Friday night, and I think we made weight Monday and fought Tuesday. So it was only 2 full days, but it wasn't my favourite.
And you didn't enjoy the house from there, so you've gone from lock up in the room, which is crap, and now you're locked up in the house as well, where you've got no escape. You're with your team all the time, right? That's every time you leave the house, it's with them to go to the gym or back to the house just to be stuck in the house with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had this conversation recently. I think even now it would be, if it was my actual teammates, that would still be pretty difficult because of the lack of outside contact. I could cope with it because most of us are friends.
Most of us. People listening to it are going to be, I wonder if it's me that's not everyone in the gym's wondering who's the one who's not in the group.
Yeah, well, even the ones I get on well with, I think 6 weeks in, we'd start winding each other up quite a lot. But it would be doable. The lack of music, the lack of TV, all of that stuff, that would still be really hard. But the fact that it was with strangers, I think having lunch there was amazing. I don't think I could have got through that without her. So.
People want to be a personality as well, which is the thing. That's the hard bit, is that people want to be a personality, and I'm one of those people. I mean, I'm quite loud and outgoing anyway, but not because I want to be a personality. It's just who I am. But when you've got people who are trying to force a personality out because they know I'm a fighter, I've got to make a show, it just gets tiresome, and to be locked in that house with those guys for those amount of time, I can imagine. It was an all-female show though, right? Your show?
No, they mixed light heavyweights, so it was half and half. So 8 guys, 8 girls in the house. 8 women, and yeah, I mean, I think it could have got quite. I think the guys helped. I mean, they're a pain in the arse, but I think they helped lighten things a bit. I think it could have. It's a season before us. I think that was a personality thing as well. But the all-female strawweight season looked pretty unpleasant.
Yeah.
So I think the mixture of men and women. I think our season was apparently one of the most laid back. I think we probably really, really bored the producers, but that was good from my point of view.
So what? So from the Ultimate Fighter, how did it go in the Ultimate Fighter? Your fights in the Ultimate Fighter. I mean, obviously I know the results. People who are listening know the results. But from your point of view, how did it go? What do you think are things that held you back from your performance and stuff?
I mean, it was a really weird environment. That made the training hard. My whole like all the women, all 4 of us on my team won. So knowing that if that happened, we would end up fighting each other, that was kind of stressful. Because we all shared a room as well, so it was 4 of us in the same room, and as more and more of us kept winning, it was looking more likely we'd be fighting each other as well. And I didn't. There was a chance I'd fight Lance, which I really, really didn't want to have to do.
Yeah.
Fighting people you've been living and training with wasn't ideal either. So I think leading up to all of that, and I fought last as well, or joint last. So I fought to get in, and then it was 5 weeks until I fought again, and that fight was fine. It was a 2-round fight. I won the decision. It was nothing spectacular, but I won both rounds, and then it was straight into the announcement of the next set of fights, which obviously I don't think many people outside of that situation would have done that. So going straight from one fight into the next one against someone you've been living in the same room as for the past 5 weeks, and then I have to make weight again 8 days later, and that was horrible. 8 days was just enough. My weight rebounded really quickly, which it does normally. So like having to force it back down again was not the most pleasant.
And this is your first experiences of strawweight as well, right?
Yes. I was really lucky that I fought towards the end, and I'd asked for it as well, because I think I made 116 by this naked. It was literally naked for my first fight, and then I was 129 pounds my first few days in the house, and I did not want to try and get it down from 129 to it's potentially 2 days notice, I think.
Yeah. 2
or 3 days notice depending on when in the week you're fighting. I didn't want to try. I mean, I could do it now, but I wouldn't want to. So I used that time that I had to get my weight low. So I was dieting pretty hard the whole time in the house as well. And it was a really easy weight cut, that the middle one. I woke up 4 pounds, exactly 4 pounds over. So that wasn't too bad. But,
that's a dream. 4 pounds over is a dream anytime.
Well, I get lower than that now for flyweight, which I'm so grateful for every single time. But yeah, waking up 120 pounds, that's the only time, I'd say, in my adult life that I've ever managed that.
What do you walk around at weight-wise?
Normally now about 62. I'm a bit heavy at the moment because I spent the first 12 weeks of the year lifting heavy. Like we were trying
to we won't say whose fault it was.
I blame lockdown. It murders my
battery. So we were saying about the weight that you walk around at now. You're like 62, did you say?
Yeah, a bit over 63 at the moment. So I started dieting the week before the lockdown happened, and then the lockdown happened and I gave up. So
You started baking. I know. It got
so,
me.
I don't know, just over 63 maybe, which is heavier than I normally am. But hopefully, I'll hold on to a little bit of the muscle that I, fingers crossed, put on at the start of the year rather than lose everything.
Well, I mean, so there's been no indication or anything yet of when the next fight's going to be anyway, right? You don't not have anything.
Bellator, I think, did the right thing and shut down everything. I think they tried for one last show and cancelled it on the day. I can't quite remember why that happened, but I know they paid everyone, so that was at least they did that. And I think it's a sensible thing to do to wait it out. Because I mean, the travel alone is pretty risky, let alone the training, dragging your coaches and stuff along with you as well.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the current situation how it is now, I wouldn't want to be rolling around with guys in a gym to get ready for a fight, and I certainly won't want to be preparing for a fight without having guys to roll around with in a gym. So the natural thing would be to not have a show, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm really looking forward to, it's hypocritical of me, because I'm really looking forward to this weekend's fight.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's unnecessarily risky. And I mean, I think, especially at the top end of the sport where there's more money, I think if you can afford to have your coaches and your training partners living with you, then that's really small risk. If you're living together as a household and training together, then that's not a big deal. But I think if everyone's going back home to their families, then you're putting your coaches and your teammates' families at risk, which I wouldn't be particularly keen on myself.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I've done no personal training. I've done no, like, people have been messing with, oh, where's you got keys to the gym? Can we just get in? I'm like, nope, because I'm like, if anybody infects a member of their family, and then they get it and it's bad, it's too late to then say, oh shit, we shouldn't have done something. No, also, I've been doing this shit for 18 years. It's nice to have a little bit of a rest. I've never had so long doing nothing. Even when I had my knee surgery, I still did some stuff. So it's been a bit nice, really.
Yeah, I really miss it. I know that I've been doing it long enough that the movement's still there. I might lose a tiny bit of the conditioning. I actually realised halfway through sort of inverting recently that that it's probably going to be my abs and the guard retention that's going to be my biggest issue when I come back. I think that would probably hurt like hell.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I don't think I'd want to go straight back into really hard rolling. But I think in the next few weeks I'll be able to roll with a couple of teammates legally, and just go from there, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing a little bit of stuff with my dad, some drills with my dad, getting him to try and do some jiu-jitsu. He's not as enthusiastic about it as I would have liked, but he wants to learn some stuff. He just don't want to roll. And then, but that's for me, I'm like, this is amazing. If I could just do this for a few more months, just drill, just take it easy. But of course, you get back in the gym and you start we'll just flow roll. Then someone goes for something and then... I'm as bad as everyone else. At the beginning, I'm the coach and I can tell everyone how to do things. But when someone starts trying to take my back, you're just like, okay, we're rolling then, are we? So you get carried away.
Yeah, I think I've definitely got a few teammates that they'll roll sensibly at the start, and there are a lot more that wouldn't. So yeah. I will definitely pick my partners carefully. I really, really enjoy training with a large team. I like the sort of isolation work you do, one person after another rotating off the wall or king of the mat or whatever people call it. I think that's going to be quite a way of happening, but what I want to do in the meantime.
You'll find something. I mean, I think I read today, with this rolling out of the phases things, they said it could be October before gyms are fully open. So if they're saying October, that's going to involve any like jiu-jitsu and stuff's going to be right at the back end of that because obviously it's so close contact. So I mean, that's obviously nobody knows yet. We've got to wait and see what happens Sunday. But the proposal for October, that shakes up UK MMA dramatically. I mean, I don't know what the rest... America seem to be on their own path and doing whatever they want, but I'm not sure that the rest of the world, and especially the UK, are going to necessarily follow suit with them. So...
Yeah, I was thinking with the big comps, like, there's probably a chance that New York would do the Nogi Pan Ams in September still. Wouldn't surprise me if they open back up for stuff like that. But would I want to go to New York in September? That's the real question.
Yeah, and then we don't know what air travel is going to be like yet either. So, I mean, going to New York's one thing, but if you're going to New York and paying £1,500 a ticket, you're like, no, don't. Maybe I'm not going to go. It's double the price. So, yeah, we're trapped in this situation, which I feel, fingers crossed, everything's going to be okay and it's not being rushed, and we don't come out and then boom, 6 weeks later we're all locked back down again because everyone's got it completely wrong. It's such an up in the air, isn't it? We just don't know where we're going to go from this.
Yeah, I don't know where Bristol is. I mean, Devon and Cornwall have got, you can't really tell with cases, can you? But Devon and Cornwall have got a really low level of deaths. So
yeah,
it's not something I'm so concerned by down here. Southwest still pretty low as a whole, I think. But yeah, I mean, the difference between, say, Cornwall and London is absolutely massive.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's tricky. I'd like for them to do things regionally, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, for me, I'm not worried about me in the slightest. I'm happy. I'm a healthy guy. I train often. I'm not really that susceptible to anything happening. I'm the right side of 40 still, so I'm sort of happy to do all the things. But then you have to be an adult and you have to say, well, okay, but then am I happy to live my whole life in isolation because I don't know who I'm going to come in contact with? And that's where people are forgetting, you know. So I think it's going to be up in the air for a little while yet. But so you the rate that you're fighting with Bellator, this is one of my big criticisms about Bellator. I like Bellator, and I did get approached about a fight on Bellator a few years ago, and I didn't take it. And now I would probably fight on Bellator now because it's a very good organisation. But also what they were doing before, I don't think they were keeping UK fighters active enough. But now because of the whole BAMA Bellator merged thing, I think Bellator seems to be churning out some fights. Are you happy with how often you're fighting? Would you like to be fighting more, or?
There was a really annoying gap between, oh god, what year? May 2018 and fighting June last year. So that wasn't great, but that was the period that they were opening up all the UK shows. So yeah. I think a lot of that was logistical. And I don't know, they didn't want me on this London card, the London card in May. They wanted me in the States. So I don't know whether I'm on the European roster or not. I don't really care as long as I get something. Except London is Hawaii was amazing, but I can't remember. It was 26-hour journey. Longer than that. It was a very, very long journey home the day after the fight. And London is, compared to that, London is incredibly appealing.
Yeah.
But I have no idea what's going to, even under normal circumstances, I don't really know what they would be wanting. So there was a bit of talk of America, I think this month maybe, but yeah, COVID-19 killed all that anyway.
Yeah. So how often would you like to fight?
I'm okay with a couple of times a year because it gives me time to actually work on improving in between, as opposed to, if 3 times a year is not, is fine, but it's almost back-to-back fight camps. And
yeah.
I like the progression as well. I like the training. I like the progression. I don't necessarily need that sort of go of fight camp all the time. I think it sharpens you, but there's not necessarily space for working on the smaller holes in your game, really.
Yeah, I agree. The most I fought, I think, is 5 times in a year, and I think that when you're fighting active, unless they're quick turnover fights, you're in and out, and then the next one's maybe a catch weight or something. When you get to the level that you're at, where you're expected to make a designated weight all the time because you're a title contender, it's hard. It's hard to keep putting your body through that without any break. And 3 fights a year is, as you say, like considering, let's say 10-week fight camps even. 10-week fight camps, you're like 30 weeks of the year immediately spent in fight camps. The rest of the time you've got to think about planning weight cuts, doing this. So it is a lot to ask for 3 fights a year at that level, I believe. But
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely fighters that like doing it. There are fighters that like doing it more often. I don't think any of them do big weight cuts. I don't do big weight cuts either. So it's not that that's a huge issue. It's just that it it, it changes the focus of my training, which is good. Um, well, it's both. It goes both ways. Some people really, really want to just keep fighting that ladder. I just want to get better. I know those two can come together, but I just like being able to focus on what actually involves my jiu-jitsu game and striking in particular. Really, that was a big focus for all this happened. Working with my striking coach a bit more. So I'm starting to see flashes of the work that I'm doing with him in fights, but I want to be able to what I'm doing with him in the gym. I want that to be able to come out under pressure a lot more than it currently is at the moment.
yeah, I understand. 2 seconds, got some horrible feedback coming through here now. What's going on now? Stop. I don't know if that's your end or my end now.
Uh,
Can you hear that?
yeah, I can hear you.
Right, we're good now. I don't know what the hell that was. I had like this weird Space Invaders noise. That was really weird. I thought it was going to crash again. There's only so much video editing I can do. Yeah, that's that. I understand exactly what you're saying. So let's go back and have a look at your last fight. Let's have a talk about that. How you think you performed? Do you think it was a good representation of who you are? Yeah. How did you feel about the title fight?
I'm really impressed with how I handled the run up. I struggle with that much publicity, and I got through that fine. I was really relaxed during fight week. The open workout went okay, and I was really, really nervous about that. All the weigh in, all the interview stuff, making weight. That was all. I mean, making weight wasn't brilliant. That was more, I think. Uh, I spent, how long did I spend? I spent 8 days in LA, and I got used to that time difference. But that last jump from LA to Hawaii was something I should have, in hindsight, done earlier on. I went out on the Tuesday and fought on the Saturday, and I think because I was cutting weight or carb depleting at that point, I just didn't. I was sleeping really badly. I didn't really adjust to the time zone difference. So since that's a lesson learned for next time, the weight cut was so it was a struggle. I think I cut almost nothing, like actually sweating. It was like half, I can't remember, about a pound at the most.
Wow.
The morning of the fight in water. But I think it's working out for next time. I think I'd probably be better off eating more calories, more carbs, and cutting a bit more water weight, or getting my weight a bit lower earlier on. Because the carb depletion is just something that I think cramming in that many carbs, like, whatever I'm doing, 4,000 calories after having been eating, like 1,200 a week.
Yeah.
I think, suddenly quadrupling what I'm eating is just a bit much.
Yeah,
So,
also it's the mental torture of depleting the carbs that for me, like, I get nervous about the weight cut. I hate the weight cut. I do a big weight cut, which is a shame, but to make 70 for me is a massive weight cut. It's a shame, but I put myself there, so you've got to do it. But the mental torture of living on like 800 calories for the last 4 days, and really being strict for the last 3 weeks, and no chocolate, it makes me, I start to detest the whole lead up to a fight then. So once I've made weight, I'm fine. I'm happy. I'm good. I'll fight anyone in the world. We're good to go. But that little lead up to that fight, that making weight, which is when you have to do all your press and stuff, that is the terrible bit for me. That's the mental torture, the mental side of it.
yeah, I mean, it was fine. I coped with it all. I think just looking back, it made that week harder than it would otherwise be. So it's probably something. Mind you, next time I probably won't have I won't have a huge mental difference. So it won't be so much of an issue. I think it was just it was all a lot. But once I made weight, it wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was really relaxed in the run up to the fight. I remember the commentator was having a conversation with here's John McCarthy and Josh Thompson a couple of days after the fight, and they were telling me that the previous title contender Vita Ortega was out there fighting as well, and she was saying that she thinks that when she started walking out, the pressure got to her. She suddenly realised the magnitude of what she was doing. And I remember thinking, shit, what if that happens to me? And it didn't. So the fact that I walked out there, I was being booed by the Hawaiian crowd, which I got so many Hawaiians messaged me on Instagram afterwards apologising, saying it was against the Aloha spirit. They wish that hadn't happened and stuff, but none of that fazed me. So I'm glad I got to the point where I could cope with all of that. And I was really worried in the fight that one, I'd gas, and two, I'd quit because of it.
Yeah.
Because I've never fought a 5-round fight before.
Yeah.
Maybe I set my bar too low. Maybe I could have expended more energy. And maybe I should have trusted myself more to be able to push through that. Because I don't. Once I, in hindsight, once I'd done it, so I was like, oh, I wasn't anywhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And I was like, so maybe I could have, pushed myself harder. But at the time, that's a very hard decision to make, I think.
Yeah, when you're fighting probably the best opponent you've ever fought on, the biggest show you've ever fought on, over the longest distance you're ever going to fight, it's so much to know when you can put your foot on the gas. And then even say you've ended round 3, you're coming out for round 4, and you think, actually I don't feel too bad. You're still in your head thinking, yeah, but I've got round 5 yet, so maybe I won't go just yet. So I can imagine it's quite a hard thing to know this is when I go, because so for me, the way I consider you to be a grinder, that's the way that I think of your fighting style. You're very technical. That's not to take away from your technical abilities, but you are going to be in someone's face from first bell to second bell. If they let off a little bit, you'll be right there with them. Let's go. And you have that style where, if someone's not going to push you work rate wise, you're going to be in their face. Make no ways about it. I'm coming for you. Let's fight. And that's the way that I've always thought about how you fight. And in that fight as well, I didn't see that you weren't necessarily doing that. It was just she maybe had the upper hand and knew how to fight the 5-round fight maybe better than you, as opposed to knowing how to fight better than you. She knew how to fight the 5-round fight better than you, and she started to grind on you and took the position that you would usually hold.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way. I never really felt a huge amount of danger, but
Yeah.
the fact that she was, I think a lot of this sport, especially when the skill levels are semi-equal on the ground, I think it's the person that is on top that obviously has the advantage.
Yeah.
And her wrestling was better than mine. So, her being in the top position meant that I suppose I didn't really. I'd spent, I think, maybe too long watching previous opponents against her and what they were doing, and not considering that my own grappling style was different. So I think I could have maybe. I think it would have been very difficult. That was my biggest fear, that if I started trying to take her down, like if I started trying to wrestle a wrestler, that I would burn through all the energy I had
Yeah.
and be absolutely screwed. And she was a dangerous enough grappler that would put me in quite a lot of trouble if I started fighting completely on autopilot without the ability to think through what was coming next. So I still watch that fight back. It's driving one of my coaches absolutely crazy. He desperately wants me to watch it, and it takes me quite a long time to get around to watching the fights that I lose. And I probably will eventually, by which point it will probably be much less relevant. But yeah, from what I remember, she she beat me to the positions, slightly ahead, slightly better. That's all it takes, really.
So, and would you think that's because you were a bit overly cautious in how you approached it? Because, I mean, you don't. It's one of those things. Like, don't wrestle a wrestler if the wrestler's a better wrestler than you. Of course, don't do that. And then, if you're not worried about your jiu-jitsu game against this person, the thing is, don't be on your back. That's the logic behind it, right? Don't wrestle a wrestler if they're better, and try not to be on your back. We're good. So that's like going into the fight, taking those thoughts into the fight with you, and thinking, oh, I shouldn't do that. Do you think that now, in actuality, you probably could have pushed a little bit harder in the areas where you gave her a bit too much respect?
Yeah. I think it's always using the benefit of hindsight to um, look back and what could I have done differently, because I'm sure she'd be like, well, I would have done so and so, so it's not relevant.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are. I mean, I went the distance. That hasn't happened before.
Yeah.
Maybe that just means that I was stupid enough to get myself beat up for 5 rounds. I don't know, but the very fact that, I mean, I didn't quit at any point. I could have easily have let her armbar me.
Yeah.
I think at one point, and I didn't, which isn't obviously it's not quitting is not a really big deal or anything.
Oh no, it's a massive deal. I think people will underestimate that even at this level, it still comes into your head. Like people don't realise that there's points in the fight where you think, I could just give up now, and people are just think, well, fair play, you did really well there. Like I can actually just, and people assume that doesn't happen. And what's really strong is when it does happen, and you're like, fuck that. Like I'm not letting you beat me there. So I think that is a massive deal that you don't quit in situations where you could, and people would like quite willingly be like, that was amazing, you know. So that is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that I pushed it to the end. There are things that I maybe didn't make sensible choices that I could have done differently, but I didn't give up. I kept trying to sweep her. I kept trying to change the situation, and maybe my own game played against me. Like her previous opponent had a lot of success. Like she worked her way back to guard, and she was landing quite a lot of strikes from the bottom in that position. And I'm probably a bit guilty of using half guard and Z guard a bit too much, which meant that she couldn't really get at me, but I couldn't really get at her
Yeah.
from that position either. So, but then I'm not a guard player, so maybe I should have realised that previous opponents were achieving guard because that's part of their game as opposed to all that was there. It's one of the difficult things about analysing fights, really.
But it's nice to not get hit as well. If you're in a position and you're like, oh, she's not hitting me and she's not passing, so this isn't too bad. Just I'll hang on here for 5 minutes.
Yeah, it was fine. I just I need a better game, which is frustrating at the moment because there's only so much I can do to achieve
develop.
that
Yeah.
not being in the gym.
Yeah, but that'll come, and the fact that you've seen, and the thing is, you need a better game to fight her. Like your next opponent, the game that you have may be exactly how it's been for the previous opponents. Like, was it Lena? Isn't it? You fought what's her name? Lena
Vichnikova.
Yeah. So I've crossed her a few times. I was there when she fought in Super Fight League in India. I think she fought Joanne, didn't she?
Yeah, that was I watched that quite a lot. That was a really cool fight.
Yeah, she bit Joanne.
Yeah, I saw. You can see it in the footage.
Yeah,
I
so
at the time. Well,
I seen her there, and then I saw her. I don't know whether it's KSW or somewhere as well. I've seen her, so I know her. I know her quite well, and she's tough in like a stand-up fight, but she's not like there. I just knew the moment you accepted that fight, I knew you would. I thought even if it went the distance, you were going to out-grind her. You will make her quit 100%. And as soon as you got the top position on her, and I just stood, because there was a little moment where you had top position, you weren't doing anything. You just had top position. I was like, oh, if she starts throwing now, she's done for. And you started to unleash elbows. I think it's elbows you stopped her with, didn't you?
Yeah, I got mount on her twice, and the first time she kind of sat up into me, and I was like, "Oh, there's a guillotine there." So I went for that, and she just kind of stood up, and I was like, "What is it with these people? Like, this isn't part of like, why are you doing this?
Don't they know the routine?"
I was like, "This isn't technically good MMA or jiu-jitsu." So in fact, I think I might have pulled half guard on her at one point. I think I shot on her and she sprawled and I pulled half guard and I swept her. I did it on purpose as well. It was a bet with a teammate. Got them out again. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to go for any subs this time. I'm just going to finish it right here, right now.
Yeah.
Those.
And I knew you would. I knew 100% once you're in that position. I was watching. I was like, if she lets go now, this is over. This is definitely over. And then when you started to let go, you could tell she just had no. There's not even an attempt to mount escape. It's just damage control from her, and you were just gonna unleash. So it's one of those. Okay, you came up short against the champion, but you didn't look like getting finished at any point. And so you might have to change your game to fight her again for a rematch. But in your next fight, depending on who the next opponent is, you might have all the attributes that they need to work on changing their game, so you can just stick with. Of course, you want to keep evolving because you're an MMA fighter, but yeah, I think you're very well-rounded and well-rounded enough to fight anyone in the division and then just make little adjustments here and there. But comparing your performance to your last performance against the champion is probably not a good assessment for how you're going to fight everybody else, you know?
No, I mean, I really want... Alejandra Lara, don't know if you know her.
Yeah.
She's I mean, I quite like her actually. She's got a good Instagram following. She's the one that wrote the SOS for the Amazon when it was on fire.
Oh yeah.
Across her body. So I quite admire that. She had a really cool fight against Peter Ortega the night before, the Friday night, the night before the show I was on.
Mm-hmm.
And she's fought Lena as well. It took her 3 rounds to choke her out. I think that'd be a really cool fight. But it depends what Bellator wants. So I
Yeah.
guess, and what happens with all of this as well. So wait and see.
Yeah, I think that's a cool fight. That'd be a really good fight for you, I think. What are you thinking about this weekend? The fights this weekend. How are they? How do you think they stack up? What do you think of Tony Ferguson Gaethje?
I love both of them. Gaethje's got, I mean, they both got really cool styles. I don't know, Tony's on such a long winning streak, and he's taken out so many good guys.
And he's wild. Like, he's just wild. So you can't.
And he's crazy. So I suspect he might finish Gaethje.
Yeah.
But or I suppose he could go distance, he'd win by decision. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, even though it probably should be happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I necessarily condone it happening, but I'm fucking glad it is. But for me, I think you back Tony there all the way. Except Pettis was doing really well against Tony until he hurt his hand. So I think then, like, okay, Gaethje isn't Pettis. Does he present as much trouble? Probably not. Gaethje's just going to come forward, and you're playing into Tony's game a bit then, aren't you? So, yeah, it's an interesting fight, definitely.
And the co-main is how do you pronounce his name? The really annoying little wrestler.
Yeah, Cejudo versus Dominic Cruz.
Yeah.
Wow, now that's a fight. Who have you got? Dominic, who's hasn't fought since 1983, or Cejudo?
I'd give it to vintage Dom if he was.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I suppose the wrestling's never quite on the same level as an Olympic wrestler.
No, and especially not that Olympic wrestler. But at the same time, I'm not a massive fan of Cejudo's top game either. So I think even if he does take Dom down, Dom got bad knees. That's the only thing. Even if he does take Dom down, I think Dom's going to be really dangerous to him on the floor. But I'm not a fan of Cejudo really. I don't like how he conducts himself.
Well, I think he goes out of his way to be a twat. So
yeah.
There is that as well. But yeah, he'll probably win.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good card. This is the thing. In the light of the situation, they've given us an amazing card. So a part of me still thinks he's going to get pulled. Part of me still thinks I'm not. Until they make the ring walk, I'm not convinced.
It's Florida, isn't it? Florida doesn't give a shit.
Well, to be fair, if there's a state in the US where you got to worry about people being old and dying, Florida's the state. That's where everyone's old and dying.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think they're very not democratic.
Yeah, it's I'm glad to have some MMA back, but it really doesn't seem that long that there was a UFC now. Now that we're looking like a couple of days before an event, it doesn't seem that long ago that there was one. So, the
last one was a week before the London card, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Was that mid-March? So it's only been 2 months.
Yeah, it doesn't. There was a time when they were like once a month anyway at the most. So it's not it's not a huge deal that we've been hanging on. But
no, it'd be interesting to see because I know there are some UK fighters that are willing to fight. Be interesting to see if they can find a way to get them to wherever.
That's the thing. It's the restrictions because they couldn't. Khabib was having none of it, was he? Khabib was like, I'm not coming. So, but that's typical Khabib. I think Khabib just wants them to walk around Khabib like you'll do what Khabib says. Like, yeah, you're right, we will. So.
Well, I didn't blame him. Was it he was in the States and he was told that this fight was probably going to happen somewhere in UAE.
Yeah.
So he went over there, and then they started closing borders. So he went home, and then they closed the border. You can't really blame him for that.
I don't blame him at all. No, definitely. And I think as well, he hasn't had enough respect as a champion for the most dominant champion. You know, he's 26 or 27-0 in the UFC. Like, come on. Like, you give the man what he wants every time. Stop worrying about people who sell more on a pay-per-view and say you're the best in the sport. We'll give you what you want. In my opinion.
I mean, he is really, really impressive to watch. Like, I love grappling. But then you get someone like, well, Tony Ferguson, that gave you the fight that's coming up, and that's terrible for both of them. That's doing a lot of damage to both of them long term.
But would you have rather seen Ferguson and Khabib?
I don't know. I want that. Obviously, everyone wants to see that fight happen eventually. Was it try 6 or something next time?
Yeah.
6 to 10. But the question there is not can Khabib get him down, it's what can Tony Ferguson do to him on the floor once he is down.
On the floor, yeah. I mean, he's dismantled black belts before, so I don't think he's worried about his grappling. He dismantles black belts every day at AKA, but Tony's got a way of damaging people from the bottom with elbows and stuff, and he's different, isn't he? Like, you're not finding a training partner like Tony Ferguson, so. Yeah, it's a tough one to call.
It was Poirier. Was it Poirier he fought last to beat?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the guillotine, I can't remember which round it was. Second,
third, I think.
There was a solid guillotine attempt that was quite close, apparently. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Tony Ferguson can do something.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting right now. And also that Bellator's super interesting now as well with the fighters who they're attracting. It's just MMA is right there now. You know, it's really, really exciting times. This is just emphasised by the fact that A, this is happening. B, it's an absolute humdinger of a card. Any time where you've got Pettis and Cowboy on the prelims.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Come on, like, what sort of card have you put together where that fight is on the prelims? Hell of a show.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. It starts at 11 o'clock at night, so I'll probably still be watching it the next morning.
I was thinking of doing like an alternate commentary to it or something, just to keep me enthusiastic about staying up. Just getting someone else to join me, do like an alternate commentary. Otherwise, to sit up for it, like, but if you get someone else there, yeah. So I might do that. Might keep people interested. What else are you doing away from MMA? Do you have any hobbies? Are you doing anything else? Anything else that you can think after this is over, I can turn my hand to this?
That's a bit worried, really. I could go back to, I did say a bit, I can do accounts and payroll. I've got a bit of training in that.
Please, never say that again. Please, you just killed every bit of enthusiasm of the podcast. You can do.
Desperation. Go back to that. I don't know. I'm in the middle of doing a sports nutrition course. So maybe something along those lines. Coaching as much as I can. So I'm not sure really. Hobby wise, I'm terrible. I get asked this question over and over again. Like, what do you do? I'm like, well, I walk the dog. I watch Netflix. I read. I don't have any exciting hobbies out of the hobby that's kind of all consuming.
That is the answer of the people who achieve stuff. So like Nad does nothing but train all the time, see his family, read a bit. I had Mason Jones on here the other day. Mason Jones does nothing but read and train constantly. Most of the top guys who I've trained with all over the world do nothing but that. As where someone like myself was off jumping out of planes, jumping off buildings, flying birds of prey, doing this. There's a reason people like me don't get anywhere. And then there's a reason that people like yourself, you stay focused on something. And I always feel like when I'm training, I'm missing out on the other things I could be doing. You don't, I mean, I guess you're not training thinking, oh, I'm really missing out on a really intense dog walk.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard because it's suddenly, at some point, will suddenly come to an end. I suppose unless you go into coaching, but even then, the focus is different. Whereas if you have other interests, then it's not like stuff still continues. It's not like the one thing you do doesn't suddenly vanish. So there's more. So I think there's a lot to be said for having more in your life. But
I mean, I can see you on the Great British Bake Off. Definitely.
No, it's like my sister and my mum are obsessed with watching Master Chef, the Great British Bake Off.
Yeah.
I don't even know Great British Menu. I don't even know what they are. All these cooking programs, and the voiceover makes me want to murder people. I find them so tedious. I like baking, but those programs really.
TV's not for you, is it? TV is not for you. You're like, I'll bake and I'll send you pictures. That's it.
Yeah, no, I mean Netflix is okay, but like my family watches University Challenge, like all the cooking programs, all these random like murder mystery detective programs.
What are you watching on Netflix right now?
Outlander.
Did you do Tiger King?
No, I couldn't bring myself. I just couldn't bring myself to watch it.
It was so good.
So terrible.
It was so good. Luckily, I watched it like the day that it came out, so there wasn't much hype. So I managed to watch it without all the hype of everyone building it up. Because since people do, I've never watched Game of Thrones or anything because people hype it up, and as soon as they do, I'm like, oh fuck, I'm not watching that now. But Tiger King, I managed to catch it before all the hype, and I was like, this is insane. It was brilliant.
American food elite, and I don't know. I think that would drive me crazy.
Yeah, things I can recommend. I fell in love with Fleabag. I caught up on that recently because I've been in isolation. Fleabag I loved. I love Killing Eve. Killing Eve is wicked.
Oh yeah, that's something to watch with.
Oh, it's good. Like the first series is a bit like low budgety, but the assassin Jodie Comer is amazing. You just fall in love with the assassin. So that's really good show. And at the moment I'm watching that The Last Dance on Netflix about Michael Jordan and stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think is that Netflix or Amazon Prime?
Netflix. Yeah, Netflix.
It is Netflix.
Yeah, but I love it because I love Jordan because of all through my career. I used to follow, I'd read books from his strength and conditioning coach and his mind as an athlete, and the way he used to just walk in and he'd pick team members. He'd be like, I'll tell you what you need to work on. You need to work on this. And he'd just take a team member and stay behind it, practice, and just help them get better. So, for me, he's the greatest athlete ever. So when I'm watching this now, it's really a really cool look at the team that he was involved with and how he helped make it. It is really cool. So.
Watch next. I think that's probably something that might end up watching that with my family because sports at least something that that we can agree on. Well, I say that I don't like most sport actually. Football, I'm so bad. There's no football at the moment. That makes me happy. I don't mind athletics, but constant sport on TV, and very little of it is anything that I do. So
yeah, I watch very little sport. I'll watch documentaries about Formula One, but won't watch the Formula One. I'll watch documentaries about other sports and won't watch the actual sport. Because I'm like, no one's punching someone. Like, what sort of sport is this? And then rugby, I played rugby for a bit, but it was too violent without being violent enough. So people stood on me, and I was like, well, if you stand on me, I should be allowed to punch on you. You've got you shouldn't be allowed to stand on me if I can't hit you. So it was violent without being violent enough, So I'd lost interest.
Yeah, rugby is one of my favourite ones for the kids that I coach. If they've got a rugby background, then that's good, and it makes explaining double legs a lot easier as well.
Well, listen, Kate, you have been absolutely brilliant. I don't know what you worry about doing interviews. You're a pleasure to talk to. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm going to get you on again at some point. But I generally keep it about an hour and 20, hour and 30 minutes because people just turn off. But yeah, you've been absolutely brilliant. How can people follow what you're doing? Should they follow you on Instagram or just want people to leave you alone?
Well, I'm vaguely posting on Instagram at the moment. It is Instagram and Twitter are both KPA Jackson. Catherine Patricia Ann. So that's
Oh, there we go.
I'm particularly fond of. But that's my handle for both of them. Twitter's mostly me liking left wing political posts. So if you're not a fan of that, I suggest you don't follow me on Twitter. But Instagram's normal training and not so much training stuff at the moment.
Bacon. I can add her for her misshapen bread. Definitely worth adding her for her bacon. Yeah, well,
most of my bread's really good. I've got a sourdough on the go at the moment, but it's as long as I don't accidentally collapse it, getting it onto the baking stone, it's so good.
Well, the bread looked delicious. To be fair, it did look delicious. So, no, honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've had loads of fun talking to you. We will get one of these done. Let's try and get some semblance of when they got a fight coming up or get back to normality of some kind. And then we'll get you back on because I know we can carry on. Like, we can talk for ages. Thank you very much. Stay there. I'll cut this off and then I'll go and say goodbye to you personally on the other one. But thank you very much.
No worries.